Hey there, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. That should be that. I am your host, Robert Winfrey, per usual. Thank you all very much for being here, live, after the fact, however you choose to do it. Many, many years in the future. If you figured out how to send messages back in time and you're in the past listening to this, well, hi. Must be That's going to be interesting technology to potentially abuse. I don't know why you're using it on this, but if you are, happy to have you. I'm not super not super picky about it. It is technically Monday the 25th of May. I still think of it as the 24th, but since it is technically the 25th, happy Memorial Day to those of us in the United States recognizing that particular holiday today. I know other countries tend to have their equivalent in a different place in the calendar. I know Canada's is like in October, I think. Right around not October, sorry. That's when they have Thanksgiving. I know Canada's is different. Remembrance Day is not the same, doesn't fall in the same like immediate space as Memorial Day. But it's Memorial Day here in the States, so I've got a lot of history with military service on both sides of my family going back, and so it means a lot to me. Um, so hope you all enjoy whatever you have planned for the holiday weekend. If you have the time off, if you don't, I'm sorry, that sucks. On the agenda today, we will be previewing the UFC is back in China. They will be in Macau, and they've brought for what it is, it could be worse. Let me phrase it like that. This is not the strongest UFC event. It's not the strongest UFC road event. It's got a pretty solid main event. And if you look hard, there's some stuff on the undercard that's worth paying attention to. So we'll go over all that with the preview, per usual. Then we got news to talk about, and we had a fair bit of news. The viewing numbers for Rousey Carano came out. There was some events in the combat sports world over this weekend. No UFC event, but plenty of other stuff. Some of which we'll talk about because oh boy, they did Rico Verhoeven so dirty. That was no, oh god, that was bad. That was just bad. So we'll talk about the news of the week. Y'all know how we do this here. So anything you can do to interact with the product, of course, is appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching live, again, I know I'm an hour later going live than I normally am. Life. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I do this because I enjoy it. If I got paid for this, I would make it a much bigger priority to be consistently on time. As it stands, this has to take a backseat on occasion, and that happened this particular day. So sorry about that. I try to be again about within an hour on either side of about 2 a.m. Eastern for the most part is where I like to land. So sorry about that. We're more towards the 1 o'clock side of things than the so that's 1 o'clock my time. We're more towards 3 a.m. Eastern, but it was unavoidable this time, guys. I just sorry. And hope you'll forgive me for not divulging like the fine details of my personal life for the sake of this. But we're here. We're gonna get going. And yeah, to anyone who happens to be tuning in, thank you. If you're watching live, feel free to throw chats. I do interact with you guys as much as I can. So let's jump into this thing, shall we? Because we do have stuff to get through. So this coming Saturday, starting at 2 a.m. my time, that'll be fun. The UFC, as mentioned, is back in Macau, China, and they've got an okay card. I need to get a couple of things up over here. Sorry about this. I was in a rush because I didn't want to be later than I already was, and a little bit of my crap fell by the wayside. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. So, main event at bantamweight, a relevant fight for both of these gentlemen. Song Yadong taking on former flyweight champion, former two-time flyweight champion, actually, Davison Figueiredo. This is a good fight. This is a perfectly fine main event. Song he's from China, but he's not from Macau. Yeah, he's not. Had to double check that. But so he'll have, the home country / crowd advantage. It's amazing to me. Song Yadong is only 28 years old, but the miles on that guy are adding up. He's had 33 fights, which is a lot. He's been with the UFC a shockingly long amount of time. His UFC debut was a win over Bharat Kandare in 2017, November of 2017. So he's coming up on 9 years with the promotion. So he debuted young. He's had some ups and downs. He's more wins than losses by a fair margin, but we've kind of reached the point where I think the UFC is like, okay, you're in theory hitting the peak here. 28 to 32 is about your athletic prime, somewhere in that range. He's got enough fights under his belt that he should be able to lean on like some veteran savvy. Unfortunately, he trains out of Team Alpha Male, and I think I shouldn't say that's done him no favors, because that would be a disservice to the gym, no matter whatever my issues are with them, and I do have them. Saying that they've been of no benefit to Song would be a mistake. That's not accurate. I do think, per usual, with people coming out of that group, out of that camp, they are not good at helping you adjust. They're not good at finding new wrinkles. They're not good at like reworking your game once you've been kind of figured out. Now, Song still has some definite skills going for him. He's got a good chin. He's got good power. He's got phenomenal hips. He's got a great strong sprawl. None of which is surprising. But his skill set's never really matured and developed beyond that. And he's basically at this point, he's basically a generic Team Alpha Male guy, but with a sidekick instead of maybe not instead of anything, just kind of tacked on to the other generic, overhand right double leg. You can see the tools within Song, but I think he's plateaued with what that particular group has to offer him. And I don't know that he's going to make a change. And that's a problem, because at this point, the UFC is very much trying to figure out what they've got going on here. Like, are you actually going to make a move? See, Song only has a few losses in the UFC. He lost relatively early in his run to Kyler Phillips. That was in 21. He had a doctor stoppage against Corey Sandhagen in 2022. That was a heck of a fight, actually. Song just walked Corey down a lot. His defense was not up to par, but Corey didn't have enough power in the hands. But because there was a lot of consistent forward motion from Song, Cody just started intercepting him with elbows and just cut him up. And that led to the stoppage. Fair stoppage, by the way. His face was falling off. One of his eyes was like completely swollen shut. It was bad. Then he won a couple of fights. He lost to Piotr Jan. He had a weird fight with Henry Cejudo. Weird only because it ended via technical decision after an eye poke. There was no issues with Song. Um, there was no issue with Song winning 2 of the 3 rounds that they had fought of their 5 rounds. Just yeah, Pseudo did not look good there, which is got a par for the course for him at this point. And most recently, he couldn't get over the hump against Sean O'Malley. That was just January, so 4 months ago, give or take. The UFC is really trying to figure out whether or not Song's ever actually going to break through. He's been poised to do so several times. Now, a few of those earlier fights, you could maybe argue he's a little bit too inexperienced. Fair enough. He was also, again, a young guy. He's still not even 30 years old. But 9 years in the UFC coming up on is a lot. And Figueiredo's a little washed. If Song can't, I fully, spoiler for my pick here, I do expect Song to win. But he's just kind of treading water. And he's really got to break through the ceiling that he's been kind of running up against repeatedly. He's got to break through that. And he's 28. So in theory, there's years still ahead of him. But 28 with already 8.5 years in the UFC, those are some, not all miles are equal, fellas. And you rack up miles in the UFC a lot faster than you do elsewhere. So he's really kind of coming down to it where he's got to make some kind of a move. And a solid win here would be a step in the right direction, but Figueiredo also does not represent the level of competition that has been beating him thus far. So I don't know. That's a tough one. He's just in a tough spot. Any of these guys who are like, I said it about Arnold Allen last week too. Like you're sort of solidly like top 10, but you're never top 5. That's a tough spot to be. I don't know if Song's actually not top 5 at the moment. I got to double check. I don't think he is. He's number 5. Okay. Still, like that's still kind of the point though. Like number 5 is a good spot, but the people above him are as follows: Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, Umar Nurmagomedov, Merab Dvalishvili, and Piotr Yan. He's lost to 3 of those people. And I'm not saying I would hate him against Umar or Merab, but I in no way, shape, form, or fashion could favor him over either of those guys at this point. Again, he's lost to Yan, he's lost to O'Malley, he's lost to Sandhagen. That ceiling above him is becoming less and less glass and more concrete. And busting through is just going to get harder and harder. Now, Figueiredo's at 7, so he's fighting down in the ranks here, but he's in a spot where he really can't afford this loss. Now, it helps that Figueiredo is a full decade older than him. Figueiredo's 38. December. Yeah, he's 38. Not that was like how far is he towards 39 was my hesitation there. Figueiredo also has a boatload of miles on him. He has fewer fights actually than Song. He's got 32 to Song's 33. Figueiredo's also been with the UFC for a non-trivial amount of time. Yeah, same year, 2017. June of 17. So he's actually just about to hit the 9-year mark and start his 10th year with the promotion. He's just Similar spot, really. Like, since moving up to bantamweight, he's what, 4-3? Yeah. He's got good wins. Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, Marlon Vera, Montel Jackson. Those aren't bad wins, but the guys he's lost to, say it with me, Piotr Jan, Corey Sandhagen, Umar Nurmagomedov. This is like, these two guys are like fighting for the last bit of air against the concrete ceiling they've been unable to break through as the water's rising. I can't like get mad at Figueiredo for losing those fights. You know, those are three of the best guys in the world. But it does, put your ceiling in place. Now, the difference is primarily the age. At 28 years old, there's still time and physical potential for Song in ways that they are not there for an older guy like Figueiredo. And I know 38 is not old, but it is for MMA. It certainly is for the lower weight classes in MMA. He is older. So, yeah. I'm picking Song. What are the odds? Out of curiosity. Let's have a look. Where are you? Yeah, the odds are pretty heavily with Song. He's like minus 550, give or take. The 5 rounds thing I think favors Song too. Figueiredo at bantamweight. One of the things I actually appreciated about his move to bantamweight, he sort of reinvented part of his game because he has very good grappling. He's a good back taker. He couldn't do prolonged grappling at flyweight because the weight cut prevented him from being able to do that sustainably. At bantamweight, he doesn't quite have that same problem. He's been able to out grapple some of these guys who are, maybe a little bigger than him. So it's been a nice way to adapt your skill set to your new weight class. 3 rounds, I think Figgy might be able to, sneak out 2, but 5 with Song is a lot to ask. And I don't think Figueiredo at this point has it in him to put Song away, especially because Song's takedown defense is strong. It's not perfect, but it's, what is it, by the way? Let me bring up the stats here. Let me have a look. See if this might work better because they're, yeah. Let's see. Oh, for crying out loud, this search functionality is useless. Absolutely useless. Find this. No, come on. H. I. L. M. Come on. Okay, there's Song Kanong, there's Song Yadong. Let's have a quick look at his stats. His takedown defense is 73%. Okay, it's a long way to go for a stat. That's good, and it's probably more than good enough to hold up against Figueiredo's offensive grappling at this point. So yeah, we got Song there, and it's a good fight. I'm not going to complain about that fight. The griping will start shortly. Co-main event at light heavyweight is Zhang Mingyang and Alonzo Menafield. All right, go away. You are useless. Let's see what we got here. So Zhang is coming off of a loss, right? Or did he rebound? Yeah, coming off the loss to Johnny Walker. God, that was embarrassing. He had a pretty good run before that. He was wiping guys out in the first round, which is certainly respectable, but that's always dangerous when you see someone with a lot of first round finishes. Then they get to the UFC. Because eventually you're going to find someone who you can't just bulldoze. And then if you're not ready, you're going to fall apart. And he kind of fell apart against Johnny Walker. And if you're falling apart against Johnny Walker, you got some problems. That said, Alonzo Menafield is not exactly, do I rank Alonzo Menafield about the same as I do Johnny Walker? They're very different fighters. Menafield is 2-3 in his last 5. Lost to Olberg. Okay. Lost to Mirzakhanov. That may not be the best aging loss, but okay. Got a split decision win over Julius Walker. That was fight of the night, and I don't think deserved it in that particular instance. Beat Umar C. And he's coming off a loss to Volkan Uzdemir. They're trying to get Zhang right because he's a big guy. He does the first round finish thing that the UFC likes. He's got a fair amount of actual support from the people of China. The UFC is still considers that a very valuable market. So they're kind of giving him a get well fight. I'm not sure I would have gone with Menafield personally. I mean, they couldn't drop him too far back down to like fighting the scrubs of the division. There are a lot of them though. And Menafield does represent a respectable challenge. Is they're kind of past the point where he can just kill jobbers, So Menafield does seem a little bit safe if you're trying to kind of game that out, I suppose. Odds are with Zhang, not surprising. They're respectable though. Okay. You got Zhang about minus 250, minus 260, plus 210 for Menafield. That actually feels about right. That said, yeah, let's go with Zhang. The wheels may be falling off of him, but we won't know for sure until later. So we'll see if the wheels are falling off, and I'm still on. I'm gonna faceplant on this one, but heavyweight next once again because we are not allowed to have nice things. Sergey Pavlovich and Taliesin Teixeira. So Teixeira, young guy, 26. Good grief. He's done okay in the UFC. He beat Justin Taffa. He lost to Derek Lewis in 35 seconds. That was embarrassing. Beat Tai Tuivasa. That was respectable. He faded in that third round, though, which is weird to do against Tai Tuivasa of all people, but okay. Pavlovich, big guy, long reach, 34. Still could do something. I mean, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. He suffered a bit. He ran into Tom Aspinall and got stopped in the first round, but oh no, you lost to Tom Aspinall. Heaven forbid. The Volkov loss, it wasn't that he lost to Volkov. He was actually a quite good heavyweight. It's more like the way he lost that was a little bit leery. He's coming off, again, 2 wins. He beat Jairzinho Rosenstruik. He beat Waldo Cortez Acosta. That Acosta fight, though, was a while ago, August of 25, also in Shanghai. Well, I mean, we're in Macau, not Shanghai, but also in China. Okay. That's a tough one. Sorry, that needed to be fixed. The layoff's a bit interesting. I don't think much of Taliesin Teixeira. Like, you get beat by Derek Lewis, you're gonna. I think Pavlovich probably hits a little harder than Lewis and is generally like better with his hands. The question is whether or not Teixeira is like seriously leveled up since that particular loss, which is not an unfair thing, especially at his age. I'm inclined to go Pavlovich. Like I said, I haven't been super impressed with Teixeira thus far, so we will go with the Russian, who is a minus 500 favorite, give or take. All right, that doesn't seem unfair to me. Okay. Next up, bantamweight Kyle Sakura. He's back at bantamweight for the first time in a minute. Went 0-2 at flyweight. Losses to he got a title shot in his first UFC fight. He lost to Alexandre Pantoja. He lost to Tim Elliott. That was a little rough. His last fight at bantamweight, he beat Juan Archuleta at a Ryzen event. That was a Ryzen, and that was when Ryzen and Bellator were still kind of doing stuff together on occasion. So his bantamweight record is solid. I mean, he holds a win over Kyoji Horiguchi at bantamweight. He needs the win. He really does. He's fighting Cameron Smotherman. Now, Smotherman, let's have a look at him. 12-6. Had a real 1-2 in the UFC. He beat Jake Hadley in his debut and then lost to Sari Saidi and Ricky Simone. Those aren't the worst losses you can take, but if Asakura is still good, I expect this is a very winnable fight for him. But he's fought not the smartest since coming to the UFC. I mean, the Asakura brothers, for those of you who don't know, because he has a brother who isn't in the UFC, but the Asakuras are sort of the Japanese equivalent of the Diaz brothers. I'll go with Asakura. This may be do or die for him though. For the record, yeah, he's a decent favorite again, minus 270 ish. But his back's against the wall here. Like you lose to Pantoja in your UFC debut in a title fight. Okay, you get tapped out by Tim Elliott your next fight. Yeah. So you move up to bantamweight. If you drop a fight to Smotherman, who's 1-2, they're just gonna cut bait. So yeah, this is a little bit do or die for Kyle Sakura. And kicking off the main card, we have flyweight action: Alex Perez and Sumu Darji. No, this is not a terrible fight. Perez coming off of that win over Charles Johnson. He missed weight though. That's never good. That didn't end a long layoff. He lost to Asu Almabayev before that and Tatsuro Taira. Before that, the Taira one was what kept him out because he suffered a knee injury in that fight. He had a 3-fight losing streak not that long ago. I mean, Davison Figueiredo, Alexandre Pantoja, and Muhammad Makayev, 3 of the better guys in the weight class. But he's a little up against it. Not super up against it, a little up against it. Sumu Darji. Seems to have been finding his stride a little bit. He debuted with a loss in the UFC to Louis Smolka. Remember that guy? He won 3 in a row after that. Lower end of the division, though. Lost to Matt Schnell, lost to Tim Elliott, lost to Charles Johnson. Like, just really struggled. But his last 3 have been wins. He beat Mitch Raposo, he beat Kevin Borjas, he beat Jesus Aguilar. So he's back down at the lower end of the weight class, but sometimes you need that to like get your feet back under you. He's also a fairly young guy, right? Yeah, he's only 30. Not super young, but there's still time for him to make serious improvements. Perez is the concrete's kind of settled on him. Doesn't mean he can't win, but he's not adding a whole lot of new tricks to his game. Most people at that age, most fighters at that age don't. Um, Not a knock on him. It's just reality. Let me just check the odds on this one. Let's see. The odds are close. They like Perez. I'm going to asterisk this one. I'm going to respect the odds at the moment, but I got to watch a couple of Sumidarji's. I got to watch each of their last fights, which I haven't done yet. So that one gets a bit of an asterisk, though. Alrighty. That's your main card. The light heavyweight fight kind of sucks. It's just for the home crowd. The heavyweight fight mostly sucks because it's heavyweight. The other fights are actually solid, so I'm not going to complain too much. I believe. Hang on, let me. I think that's what's kicking off the main card, but they have some bouts in an unlisted order. Shiro Sakura. Okay. Oh, apparently also on the main card is Muslim Salikov versus Jake Matthews. Let's have a look there. Did that get changed? Hang on, the UFC's one might be out of date. Yeah, Salikov pulled out. Now he's fighting Now Matthews is fighting Carlston Harris. I might have picked Salikov. I know Salikov's a little bit over the hill, but Jake Matthews has like one good performance every 5 fights. I mean, Matthews, bless him, he's only 31, but he's been in the UFC since 2014. He's been here June of 14, so he's coming up on 12 years. He's very close to 12 years. Yeah, he's just a little all over the place because he'll have some good performances, and then they just come at weird intervals. I mean, he's coming off a loss to Neil Magny in 2025. That is not a fight you should be losing if you're any good. I shouldn't say if you're any good. If you're actually like good, you should not be losing to Neil Magny in 2025. And he managed to drop that particular ball. So, yeah. Fix the camera. There we go. But Carlston Harris on late notice, I don't think represents an enormous threat to him. Harris is on a 2-fight losing streak, knocked out by Chaos Williams, TKO'd by Ponzinibbio. He gave Ponzi an okay fight, for the record. Not too long ago, Shavkat Rakhmonov knocked him out in 22. Beat Jared Gooden and Jeremiah Wells. That's nothing to sneeze at. But I don't know, man. He's actually got a good front headlock series. And if Matthews gets too in love with pressing his head in too much in the clinch, he might get caught again. There's ways for Harris to win this fight. Let me say that. On a full camp, I think he might be an interesting choice. On short notice, I've got a hard time picking against Matthews here, so I will not. Let's go with Matthews. Matthews is the favorite. Yeah, not surprising. Yeah, minus 350. Okay, I can see that. Alrighty. So that should be the entire main card. So it's not awful. It's not great, but I've sat through worse, so we'll take it. All right. On the prelims at middleweight, we have Usyk Lee taking on Luis Felipe Diaz. Have a look at these two gentlemen. So Diaz is 16-5, 3-fight winning streak. This is his UFC debut, coming off a Contender Series win. Okay. Fought or beat anyone I'm actually familiar with? A lot of this is Brazilian regionals, which is not a knock on the guy. You fight where you can. Okay. And he's fighting again, Usyk Lee, who is South Korean. This is not his UFC debut, I believe, right? Oh, it is. Okay, sorry. Confusing him with another South Korean gentleman, I assume. 2-fight winning streak. Only one loss. So, okay. Couple of debutantes. Surprised they're main eventing the prelims with that. Let's see, it's a middleweight. I may just have to go with the odds on this one. Odds like Diaz, I haven't picked a dog yet. It's late. I'm gonna go with Lee. I'm gonna asterisk this one though, just because I'm gonna watch each of their last fights. I can find those without too much difficulty. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait, and we're gonna see if I wake up and go, man, what were you doing last night? As you can already see the bags forming under my eyes because it's early in the morning here. Okay, moving on. Ding Meng and Jose Enrique Souza. Look at these two gentlemen. Oh, so this is yeah, Ding Meng or Meng. Ding is the family name. Its typology automatically reverses those, so it's Meng Ding. If you westernize it. Okay. So Ding is 35-9. Went 1-1 in one championship. That was a while ago, so nothing too major there. Sorry. Apologies for that, but you did not need to hear me blow out your earphones by sneezing. So the last time Ding had a fight, he got a win in Uriah Faber's promotion. That's been a minute ago, though. That's October of 25. So, okay, not a super long time, but he's had a couple of fights fall out for A1. Then he's got to the UFC here. Okay. Alrighty, that's respectable. So Jose Enrique, he is Brazilian, 8-1, 3-fight winning streak. Also has a loss on. Sorry, I think Ding had a loss on. No, Ding might have had a loss on Contender Series. Enrique here does. He lost to Yusaku Kinoshita. That loss is aging okay. Kinoshita's not. Kinoshita done okay for himself since then? No, he's 0-2 in the UFC. Okay, that may be a. Who was I confusing Kinoshita with? Yeah, Kinoshita's out of the UFC. He lost 2 and they cut him. Who the heck was I confusing him with? Some other similar name. So he's had a couple of. So they've been trying to get this guy. They've been trying to get Enrique to debut in the UFC since 2020. His last fight was 24. He's actually been out for a while. Jeez. They've tried to get him onto 3 other. They've tried 3 other fights with him this year. He had a fight with Eric Nolan fall out. He had a fight with Nikolai Veretennikov fall out, and he had a fight with Charles Radke fall out. So they've been trying with this gentleman, but it's been a bit of a road. November of 24, so not quite a year and a half, but we're getting there. That might be a year and a half. So yeah, 18 months been on the shelf. The time off there is maybe the big X factor. There's an experience gap. Enrique 8-1 to 30 plus fights for Ding. The odds are close. Some places favor Ding, some places favor Enrique. The layoff is making me lean Ding, so we'll do that. I may decide to just go with whoever's the favorite on Fight Night with that one because I don't know a super much about either gentleman. Bantamweight next, Orichi Long and Corey Haddon. It's not a bad fight. It's not great, but it's not bad. Orichi Long, 26-12, won no contest. Been up and down in the UFC. He's 4-4 with a no contest in the promotion. Most recently, he beat Cody Gibson very quickly. Before that, he lost to Raul Rosas Jr. Had a no contest with Daniel Marcos. Who are his losses? Jeff Molina, Cody Durden, Eamon Zahabi, and the aforementioned Rosas Jr. Okay. That represents a very real level of competition that he's been struggling against. The question, per usual, is does Haddon measure up to that level? Haddon's 8-1, 6-fight winning streak, won his UFC debut. He beat Dan Argueta. October of 24, though, another guy's been out for a bit. Had fights with Alexander Topuria and Malcolm Wellmaker fall out in the interim. Explains he's missing all of 25. That's a little bit of a rough one. I think logically this should be Orichi Long. This doesn't feel like a gimme, but I do think it's a very winnable fight for him. Odds are with Haddon, huh? A lot, actually. Jeez. You just not believing in Orichi Long here? Tell you what, let me go with Haddon, but I got to double check some things on that. That as I'm sitting here right now, Haddon at minus 350 doesn't feel right. I got to double check a few things on that I don't want to take up live time doing. Strawweight. Hang on, is strawweight next, or are we? Isak Lee, Ding Meng, Richie Long. No, next will be Ray Saruya taking on Jesus Aguilar. Saruya had a different opponent original. Oh no, he's not taking on Aguilar. Aguilar fell out. He's taking on Luis Gurule, who finally got a UFC win a couple of weeks ago, and now is bumping up to bantamweight on short notice to fight Saruya in China. That's a fairly big ask. Yeah, he's not fighting Aguilar anymore. Do we have updated odds on this? Yeah, okay, there's the updated odds from a few places. Okay. Not everyone is updated on this. So, both guys are normally flyweights. This is up at bantamweight because Gurula is stepping in on short notice. Saruya just doesn't have to cut as much weight, which I'm sure was nice for him. Saruya is 10-1. I think he's 1-1 in the UFC. Yeah. He beat Carlos Hernandez and then he lost to Joshua Van. I mean, that's a loss that has aged fairly well. He's had fights fall out since then. A fight with Niam Jagal Tumen Dembrel. And then the Aguilar fell out, and he's staying on this particular card. Saruya is a wrestler that's like 85% of his game. His entries aren't great. It's something they can be telegraphed. The problem is that Garule, if he can't dictate what's going on, Garule struggles down the stretch. And I think Saruya will push a hard enough pace to make his life very, very difficult. So let's go with Saruya. The short notice turnaround for Garule has also given me some serious pause. It's not like he had an easy fight to get that win. He had to work for that. Right, now we get to Angela Hill and Shang Jingyang. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Probably mispronouncing her name. Angela Hill, 41, veteran of the sport, been with the UFC. I mean, her first UFC stint did not go well. She went 1-2 and got cut. She rebuilt herself in Invicta, came back in 2017, has been with the UFC ever since. Had a lot of split decisions. Had a lot of fun fights. I'm not here to hate on Angela Hill. She's just 3-4 in her last 7. Lost to Mackenzie Dern, lost to Tabitha Ricci, lost to Yasmin Lucindo, lost to Fatima Klein, and she's not fighting an easy opponent here. Zhang Jingnan is, or Jingnan, excuse me, Zhang Jingnan. There we go. I'll get there. It's late. Give me a break. Former ONE FC strawweight champion. Yeah, her only loss in ONE was what? Okay, hang on. So she was their strawweight champ, which is 125 because ONE was weird. She was their atomweight champ. She lost an atomweight fight, so she lost a 115 fight to Angela Lee. She stopped Angela Lee before that. Then they up a weight class. Then she went down. Those were both good fights, by the way. Zhang is very good. She's been out of action for a bit. Her last fight, she beat Angela. Her last fight in ONE, she beat Angela Lee. That was in 2022. They then sat on her contract because ONE sucks. They sat her out for like, 3 years almost, 2.5 years. October of 22 to March of 25. Dirtbags. She then beat Meng Bo and finally got released because ONE is all but circling the drain at this point, it seems. Now she's in the UFC. She's not getting an easy debut. Angela Hill is not gonna just roll over, but I think fairly highly of Zhang. All her entire trilogy with Angela Lee is the ONE BS in places apart. Setting that aside, like the actual action is quite good. And I don't think Angela Hill is washed by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think the miles are finally catching up with her. So I'm going to go with Shang. But if you need a prelim fight to maybe circle, that will probably be action, if nothing else. So then we have featherweights, Ramon Taveras and Zhu Kongji. I'm mispronouncing that guy's name. I know it. Let's see. Oh, no, wait. We lost that one. Sort of. We lost Taveras. Instepping is Rodrigo Vera. Rodrigo or Rodrigo? Hang on. Rodrigo. Rodrigo, excuse me. He is Peruvian. So Zhu, 21-4, 5-fight winning streak, had 1 win and 1 championship. Got here, good grief. He won a road to UFC event in 24, 25. Split decisions the last 2 times, but good fights over Shin Haraguchi and Ji-Ben. But that was May of last year, so he's been out for about a year. He had fights fall out with Marcio Barbosa and this one, obviously, with Ramon Taveras. They're just trying to get that guy on the card to make his debut finally. Vera, 21 1-1, 13-fight winning streak. He is no one to trifle with. Has an LFA win, FCC, some Shudo Brazil stuff. Yeah, he's legit. He looks fairly legit. Coming off a win over João Oliveira. Okay. I don't recognize too many of the names, but that's a very respectable record. For a short notice fight to get kind of slapped together, that's respectable. Let's see if we have odds on this one. We do. The odds actually are with Vera. I think that is understandable. I haven't picked enough dogs, which I shouldn't force myself to do. Just it's more like if I pick only favorites, not only do I feel bad, I know that doesn't work out very well. The odds are close enough on this. Let me balk. I'll go with Zhu. I don't feel great about that. That's another one I'm gonna maybe reserve the right to change my mind on when I'm less sleep deprived than I am now. Okay, so that, and then I think we have reached the kicking everything off fight. We have Loma Lukbunmi and Jacqueline Amorim. Amorim, excuse me. I gotta be a little more specific there. Odds have this basically at a pick 'em. Slightly leans towards Amorim. I got kind of a soft spot for Loma, but she's one of those fighters who desperately needs 105 to be a weight class because she is undersized at 115. She's still 10-4, 7-3 in the UFC, so it's not like she's done bad for herself. But that woman would probably have torn some people up at 105. She's had a 4-fight winning streak broken by Alexia Tainara. Been out for a bit. That was September of 25, so the layoff is a thing. Amorim, 10-2. 4-2 in the UFC. She lost her debut to Sam Hughes, beat Montserrat Ruiz, Corey McKenna, Vanessa Demopoulos, Poliana Viana, and then lost to Mizuki Inoue. Yeah, because you couldn't stop. Got way too comfortable on her back against Inoue. Am I remembering that right? She's been out since 25 as well, so October 25. So, geez, we're halfway through the year, and I've already started like projecting into 27, especially when I'm tired. Double check the size here. So Amorim is 5'3", 68 inches of reach. She's on the small side even for strawweight. Loma's 5'1", 61.5 inches of reach. And again, she normally would be fighting at 105 in a sane world. This is probably Amorim. But I will be rooting for Loma. And that is the card as things currently stand. So, Saturday, early in the morning, 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 a.m. my time, the prelims will begin. I will have you covered over in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. So stop by, say hello. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. You know that. Okay, let me close all that down. And on that note, let's jump into some news. So let's start with Rousey and Carano because Netflix released the viewer numbers for the MVP MMA event, again, headlined by Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. And they're good. They had a peak of 17 million, a little over 17 million. I forget the exact number. And I think the average was 12.5 million. That's real good. They wanted that to be the most watched MMA event of all time. I don't know. It's hard to trying to compare some of the numbers in the UFC to Netflix numbers is a little bit apples and oranges. Because the broadcast numbers for UFC events are Nielsen ratings, which are kind of estimates. Netflix has some weird assumptions about number of people watching. They don't just go by account. They do tend to assume more than one person watching. If your account has more than one person attached to it. So yeah, it kind of all comes out. Some of it all comes out in the wash. Look, their big number they had to beat was like 9 million. Because what they've done very easily clears the most, like the highest rated UFC event on television. Now, it's harder for pay-per-view to really get a handle on how many people were watching. You just go by the buy rate, but buy rate doesn't always mean individual. So, you you're stuck kind of doing a little bit of like dog and pony stuff on this if you don't have the actual when you don't have the actual number, the like real numbers from everyone involved. You have their mostly accurate pseudo propaganda numbers. Is maybe the way to think about that. So that said, this is a win. This is an unambiguous win. I don't know how repeatable their success is here. There's not a lot of. I mean, Ronda was one of one. Like her reach into popular culture was bigger than any other MMA fighter ever. Connor had this weird thing where he was like a bigger guy within the MMA bubble, but Connor didn't get sort of the like outside the MMA sphere stuff that Ronda did. Like Connor never did, any of the mainstream media outlets that Ronda had fairly consistent access to. So, I don't know how repeatable that is, but that's clearly a win. And yeah, you know what? Good for them. Anytime I want competition in the marketplace here in MMA. It's unlikely to happen, but that's what I would like. That's not me wanting the UFC to fail. I don't want the UFC to fail. I want the UFC to be better. And they're never going to get better when they can just sit on their monopoly and go, and Dana White can tell you to shut up and watch the fights. Don't think. Just consume product, then get excited for next product, as the saying goes. That's the UFC right now, is the long and the short of that one. So anything that makes them, break up their coasting, their humdrum sort of monopolistic meandering, I'm in favor of. So I think MVP MMA, like Netflix doesn't want one of these a month. They don't. They didn't want that from the UFC. They wanted the premium end of the UFC product. They wanted like 6 events a year, maybe at the maximum. Because Netflix didn't need the slop. Netflix needs something that gets your attention on the homepage. And the reality is that, UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Costa, or Song versus Figueiredo isn't going to do it. And the only thing Netflix was interested in was the very high end stuff for obvious reasons. If that was their stance for the UFC, that is absolutely their stance for MVP. They don't want one of these a month. I don't think MVP, if they want to stay in the MMA space, should have a schedule. They should not say we're going to do X of these a year. Do these when the timing works out. Because you don't have to be beholden to we have to do this number of these a year. Let it be a bit more free flowing. Let it be a bit more, you know, my brain, man, my vocabulary fails me after this many hours without sleep. Let it be a bit more improvisational instead of as regimented as the UFC product is. Hey Sal, where is everybody? I started an hour later than usual, so I imagine that threw some people off, which is fine. That's on me. I did my apology at the beginning for it. It's okay. I accepted that might happen today because I had other engagements that took up more of my time. And because I don't get paid for this, I don't prioritize it over certain other things. Um, so anyway, MVP, big thumbs up to, again, unmitigated success. How replicable is it? That's a much bigger question. The strength of the UFC is not that they put on the biggest, most compelling fights. They don't. They put on some very, very good fights, but the UFC has failed to deliver like the biggest fights that most people have wanted to see pretty consistently for the last like 5 years. Which doesn't mean none of the fights we really want we got. It just means the biggest ones we didn't get for any number of reasons, some of which are the UFC's fault, some of which are not. But the strength of the UFC is their machinery. They'll give you 42 events a year, like clockwork. Most of them won't be good these days, but they will give you your 7 hours of airtime for live sporting action 40 plus times a year, consistently, reliably. You can count on one hand the number of events the UFC has had to straight up cancel. Well, minor correction. Absent COVID, you can count on one hand the number of events the UFC has had to cancel. They did have several they had to cancel once during the pandemic, but even then, like they still hit the number. They still had to get to 40 whatever for ESPN that year. They got to the number. They were turning and burning to make up the like what 4 or 5 events they missed. But if you want that number hit, the UFC will hit it. That's their strength. Not behold this wonderful event that will capture the imagination of the public at large. Here's the thing. It's going to be a first run thing that there is a fan base for, and you're going to get it consistently every week, well, for the most part. That's their strength. That's their operational strength, not capturing the imagination of the public. They do that very infrequently these days. Not never, just infrequently. So good for that. Good for Rhonda and Gina and everyone over there. I said there were things about that event I did not like. There were things about that event I did like. Listen to last week's show. I go into a bit more detail. Okay, let's move on to some of the combat sports results from around the world. We have to talk about Alexander Usyk and Rico Verhoeven. So this event took place Saturday. They had a great venue. They did it in front of the pyramids of Giza. I mean, they were indoors, not outdoors, but they were like they did a great press thing with this. They had, pictures in front of the big landmarks. And I'm sure people at the UFC went, why would you bother having the people there? You can just do it with AI because we're lazy and miserly and genuinely miserly. If you don't know, like the UFC isn't just cheap. Cheapness can be necessary at times. Miserly has a specific definition. If you're a miser, you are cheap to the point of like Self-damage. Ebenezer Scrooge is kind of the archetypal miser. He has money and he doesn't spend it to his detriment just because he doesn't want to, just to keep hoarding. Like, that's a miser. That's what the UFC is at this point. The UFC has the money. They could be spending it to make the product better, to make the fans happier, but they don't, to the detriment of their product. Miserly, and it's going to bite them in the ass at some point. How much they actually care about how much it bites them is open to interpretation, because the MMA marketplace is not a marketplace. It's a monolith. Anyway, so nobody gave Rico much of a chance in this fight. I'm going to put my hand up in the air and say I very heavily favored Usyk. And Rico turned out to give Usyk a hell of a fight. Two of the three judges had this even after 10 rounds. The other one had Rico up by one. Both of those scorecards are fair, by the way. Then we get to the 11th round, and a couple of things happen. First of all, Rico at this point is tired. His legs are starting to fail him a little bit. He's had a good fight. He had a good game plan. Very awkward jab. He clinched successfully against Usyk, which is weird because Usyk was great about like not getting out clinched by Tyson Fury, who's bigger and heavier and does a lot of clinching. But Rico found a way. Usyk's also used to like out clinching boxers, not out clinching guys who know how to clinch. And Glory is not, full on Muay Thai rules, which is where Rico comes from, his long K1 career. Glory's not full on, Muay Thai kickboxing, but they do allow some clinch work. So Rico had something for him in the clinch a little bit. But Rico is getting tired by this point. He's very much not used to long fights like this. Kickboxing, I think most kickboxing title fights are not 12 rounds. I think they cap out at 5. They're still 3 minutes, but I think they cap out at like 5 rounds. I don't think they do, double digits. I have to double check. So don't kill me for that one. But so he's kind of running on fumes by this point. Usyk finally seems to figure him out. And it took him, dude, if it takes Usyk 10 rounds to figure you out, you're doing something right. He didn't need that much time to figure out much more classically better boxers than Rico. So the 11th round, Usyk finally starts getting to him reliably. There's knockdowns. There's at least one knockdown. And that would have so two things. But let me finish with what happened, because then I have to explain like why this bothers me and sort of why I am both bothered by it and think it didn't actually change the outcome. So Rico gets knocked down in the 11th, and Usyk then starts battering him, and the referee stops the fight technically after the bell. Usyk is unloading. Rico is against the ropes, but he's not like hands down, don't know what I'm doing. He's not just shelling up. Like there's still a little bit of movement. He's just, his defense is falling apart a little bit. And the round ends. You hear the bell. The ref steps in to separate them, looks at Rico, and then waves off the fight. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way for a very, very, very good reason. It's hard to say they did anything other than screw Rico Verhoeven here. Now, let me be clear. Rico was on his last legs a little bit, and there is a very, very good chance that with the way the 11th round had gone, Usyk does just stop him clean in the 12th. And with a 10-8 11th, which was absolutely what the scores would have been with the knockdown, that would have put Rico in a point hole that I don't think he was going to be able to climb his way out of. They still had another 3 minutes of Usyk ready, willing, and able to take his head off, and having finally figured him out. And again, Rico's legs are not quite as there. And I don't mean like he can't stand. I mean, when your legs go as a fighter, it doesn't mean you can't stand up. It's about how you move. And Rico was just kind of starting to finally in the 11th and 12th round, like fall apart just a little bit. But dude, Usyk doesn't need more than this, partially because it's boxing. And if you can find that consistently, that crack becomes a chasm when someone knows how to exploit it. And Usyk absolutely does. So between the knockdown in the 11th and my sincere doubt that Rico was going to survive the 12th, I don't think the outcome of this fight would have changed if the referee hadn't been trying to screw Rico. But he did. And I have to say that out loud because my stance on this can't be, oh, this was, crooked and dirty and bad, but it wouldn't have changed anything. So who cares? No. We're not playing that game here. Tristan, is it clear boxing is corrupt now? That's always been clear. Always. The argument has never been that boxing isn't corrupt. The question is like, how corrupt at what level and in what places? And yeah, I mean, dude, yeah, boxing's always been corrupt. Sometimes not even intentionally corrupt. It's just been like implicitly collusive with itself. How do you think Canelo got all those scorecards he shouldn't have gotten? Like, it's not always, we joke about it being corrupt, but it's not always like, here's your pay in the mail for the scorecard. It's just everyone knows, Canelo winning is best for boxing, allegedly. So he gets the benefit of every doubt. And there's also just incompetence. Like, I give credit to the judges in this fight. Actually, the judges more or less had it right. Even 5-5 after 10 is fair. 6-4 to Rico after 10 is fair. Sorry, 6-4. 6 rounds to 4 for Rico is fair. Both of those are very fair scorecards. Some of Rico's, I think I had it even, if memory serves. I was 5-5. There's a little bit of overinflation of Rico's success because he exceeded expectations, which is a thing that happens whenever someone who's not supposed to win does well. They gave it to Fury versus Ngannou because they don't want outside guys winning. Like, sorta. Look, Fury won that fight. Well, let me rephrase. If you score the Ngannou-Fury fight as a whole, I think Ngannou won it. If you score round by round, this is not hard. Fury won more rounds even with the knockdown. It sucks, and he didn't win those rounds like decisively, but you don't score fights as a whole, you score them round by round. Tyson Fury won more rounds than Francis Ngannou. There were more points for Fury at the end of his fight with Ngannou than there were for Ngannou. And sometimes that happens, and you can just kind of sit on your hands and go, yeah, but the definitive moments went to Ngannou. Sure. He got the only knockdown. Yes, he did. But he got a 10-8 for the knockdown. That's all you get. And that's a big deal in MMA when you only have 3 or 5 rounds. Point losses in boxing are significantly more, they matter significantly less because there's so many more points over the course of a fight. But yeah, look, the ref screwed Rico here. I do think Rico was going to lose in the 12th. The way the 11th went for him, Usyk could easily replicate that with a full 3 minutes. Rico had kind of fallen apart by that point, fight-wise. I think Usyk was going to get him out of there legitimately, and I think the referee absolutely screwed this up. Rico was significantly less hurt than Tyson Fury was when he fought Usyk, and they let Fury go. Rico was less hurt than either than either Fury or Wilder in their third fight on the multiple occasions both guys got badly hurt. I still think Usyk was going to win the fight. The way the 11th played out, with the knockdown, with the scorecards, now that we know what they were, I don't, because Rico wasn't going to win the 12th. Rico maybe his best case scenario is surviving the 12th. And I don't think he does. But if he did, he's going to lose that round. And then he drops the last two rounds, one of them 10-8, in a fight that two judges had even going into rounds 11 and 12. Mathematically, he wasn't going to win that fight, even if the ref doesn't wave it off. But the ref did wave it off, and the ref screwed everything up, and that's become the story, not how. And that's where we are. My opinion, does it warrant an immediate rematch? Trying to think who. Here's the thing about immediate rematches. I'm not opposed to them, especially when there's weirdness, and the referee put weirdness into this fight. The question is who would be getting screwed over. So let's think for a second. If we do an immediate rematch, who is Usyk not fighting that he should be fighting? Part of the reason no one really objected to this fight being, made, even though it's kind of freak showy, is that there wasn't someone banging on the door going, "No, I'm next." Usyk has beaten Daniel Dubois twice. He's beaten Tyson Fury twice. He's beaten Anthony Joshua twice. That's the last 6 years of his professional career, is those three guys twice. And he beat all of them cleanly. First Dubois fight, maybe you could argue, because there was the pseudo low blow, the low blow pseudo controversy. But he handled Dubois in their rematch pretty easily. He's fought monsters the last 6 years. So in the absence of a clear number one contender, and with Turkey willing to overpay Rico to not fight Francis Ngannou because Turkey hates Jake Paul, everyone kind of went, okay, this will be a fun little diversion. And then Rico, didn't treat it as a diversion. And I don't think Usyk treated this like a diversion either. I don't think Usyk, rather infamously, Floyd Mayweather did not train hard at all to fight Conor McGregor. I don't think Tyson Fury trained all that hard to fight Francis Ngannou. Now, that worked out much better for Floyd than for Fury, because Floyd was just Conor never had anything for Floyd. No, he won, the first couple of rounds. Sort of. I maintain Conor did not win the second round of that fight. He won the first and the third. But he never had anything for Floyd. He won the round, but he never had anything for him. That's very clear when you watch that. And that's Floyd not training hard at all, because Floyd's a boxing genius. Whatever else you want to say about him, he's the best boxer of his generation. And frankly, I don't think that's all that close. Now, since he's been gone, there have been, tremendous boxers as well. But sorry, I don't mean to get on a tangent there. Anyway, point being, I don't think Usyk did the very lax training, but here's the other thing, guys. There's not a lot of tape on Rico Verhoeven boxing. There's a lot of tape on him kickboxing. But there's a lot of stuff you do differently in kickboxing. So I think Rico had a couple of advantages. One, he's an enormous guy, which is that's nothing new for, Usyk to fight a larger guy, but Rico's big. And he's awkward, and not awkward in a Tyson Fury awkward way. I mean, awkward in a way that your regular built-in patterns don't work against what he's doing, because it's just this much off, and that screws with you in some very, very real ways. And Rico had a good game plan to attack Usyk. Not hurt him and batter him, but to attack his game. And dude, you go even with Usyk for 10 rounds, that's a heck of an achievement. I do think so point being about the immediate rematch, I wouldn't hate it. Again, I'm not sure who would be the guy that would be getting really screwed over. You've got, Fury and Joshua who are finally going to have their big fight in London, which was supposed to happen earlier and then for any number of reasons never quite materialized. Some of which was boxing being stupid, some of which was Joshua losing to Andy Ruiz, which is still the funniest thing ever. Fury getting tied up with Wilder, with Wilder going, no, I'm going to use my immediate rematch. And when Fury's trying to sign to fight Joshua, and then because Fury's tied up, Usyk steps in, and Usyk upsets every apple cart that boxing may have had for the big super fight between the two best British boxing heavyweights of the last 10 years. 10 years is a bit of a stretch, but certainly in 2020, it might have been about 10 years actually, since I have to double check when Lennox Lewis retired. But the two best British boxing heavyweights since Lennox Lewis. Easily since Lennox. So at the moment, yeah, I mean, you could do an immediate rematch, and the problem is I don't think Turkey's going to foot the bill for a rematch. Certainly not to the same tune that he did for this fight. And we'll have to see. I mean, again, I think Rico was going to lose in the 12th round, the way the 11th went for him. Usyk wasn't going to let off the gas. He's not that kind of fighter. And I don't think Rico had the physical capacity to recollect himself and win that round. He could have survived, maybe, but he might have dropped another 10-8, in which case he's losing clearly by that point, scoring-wise. So I'm pissed at the way it ended because it feels dirty. I don't have any evidence beyond everything that I see says this looks dirty. I mean, waving it off after the bell, it's not impossible to do that, but when Rico's not out on his feet, and he wasn't, you handled that badly. In a world title fight, I expect, if you want to use the argument that you should give more leeway for world title fights, Rico was not as badly hurt as I said this before. Tyson Fury in that Usyk fight was hurt much worse than Rico was here. Any of the third fight between Fury and Wilder, both men more than once are hurt worse than Rico was here, and that fight kept going until Wilder was literally unconscious. The double standard is sad. And the referee came across as incompetent at best, crooked at worst. Tristan, you think we need a rematch to have a real resolution? You are not alone in that sentiment. I don't think Rico was going to win that fight. And I don't even mean that in the sense that the fix was in. I mean, look at the 11th round. I have a really, really hard time believing that after that round, after the whole fight up to that point, that Rico's going to find some magic silver bullet in the 12th. I think he was going to get stopped. I really do. But that's projection on my part. It's logical projection based on evidence, but you may be right, man. Again, I don't think Turkey will foot the bill the same way he did for this one. So some of that is we'll have to see. But with the way that stoppage happened, everyone's been saying what they did to Rico and how let me put it this way. I don't think he was going to have some miracle rally after getting bludgeoned for 3 minutes in the 11th round. I just don't see it. But they robbed him of the possibility. They robbed him of the opportunity to do so. And that does not sit well with me. So whether I think he was likely to have done it, no, I don't think he was likely to have pulled that off at all. But I don't think the circumstances warranted stopping that fight. And that's what's sticking in everyone's craw, deservedly so. For the record, I think a rematch goes worse for Rico. You gave Alexander Usyk 11 rounds with you in real time, live rounds. He figured you out by the end. He's gonna figure you out faster in the rematch, my opinion. But whether that, even if that is exactly what happens, I'm kind of talking myself into thinking that like Rico deserves a rematch because they screwed him of opportunity. Almost certainly was not going to go his way. Usyk's too good, and Rico was kind of falling apart at the end. But that's not a reason to stop the fight. Like if the corner stops it, okay, because you just don't want to see your guy get hurt. But after 10 rounds of close action, and when I say brilliant strategy from Rico to like really disrupt and mess with Usyk's game, he was not hurt enough to have warranted that stoppage, especially at the timing of it. Not warranted. Dude, even commentary was killing him for that one. Todd Grisham was just borderline irate. And that's not something you get out of him very often. Yeah, I hated that finish. I hated what they did. I hated what the referee did to Rico. Because even if Usyk comes out and in 10, 15 seconds blitzes, corners Rico, blitzes him again, and just unloads 30 punches in a row, and Rico can only cover up in the corner, then you stop it and no one bats an eye. Like, the way you stopped it was bad, and you deprived a world-class fighter of the opportunity to maybe save himself when it wasn't warranted to have stopped that fight. Yeah, I'm not happy about this. I don't know anyone that is. Like, even if you're Usyk, you can't be happy with the conversation that has come out after this fight. Because no one's talking, dude, we should, by all rights, be talking about Usyk figuring out a really weird Rubik's Cube in real time in a real tough fight and finally figuring it out in the championship rounds. That's impressive. Usyk is maybe the best boxer of this generation. Like, if we're talking pound for pound, with Bud Crawford retired, it's either Usyk or Inoue. And frankly, after this performance, like, I'm praising Usyk, but realistically, if I have to double check the weight classes here, but like if Tenshin Nasukawa came over to boxing to fight Inoue, dude, Nasukawa's going out of there on his face in fairly short order, in all likelihood. Usyk struggled, and he overcame it, and that is commendable and admirable in every possible sense of that word. But, pound for pound discussions don't hinge on your commendable unraveling of problems that you probably shouldn't have had to deal with in the first place. We talk about that when we talk about like heart and stuff like that, which is fine. And again, I'm happy to give Usyk praise for figuring out a really tough puzzle in real time. And dude, his 11th round in this fight, after going, at best 50-50 through the previous 10, his performance in the 11th is, I'm not going to say inspirational, but, borders on the heroic. Like, gone nip and tuck with this guy for 10 rounds and you finally figure it out. And not just like, oh, I can see it, but you capitalize on it. And you start putting a stamp on things. And again, one judge even had him down going into the 11th. Like, that's championship level stuff from Usyk. No one's talking about it because the referee screwed Rico. And there's no other way to put it. So, if they do an immediate rematch, I will pick Usyk again because I think he will have figured out Rico and a little bit quicker. But dude, Rico came in there and almost no one gave him a chance, and he turned in a better fight versus Usyk, a more winning fight versus Usyk than the best heavyweight boxers of this era did. Like, he actually won more rounds off of Usyk in one fight than Fury did or Joshua did. Like, that's a heck of a thing. And, I'm not going to pretend that, my words in any way soothe the sting of getting absolutely hosed by the, borderline corruption, if not just flat out incompetence in the world of boxing. But what Rico did was commendable as well. Nobody gave him a shot. Everyone overlooked him. And he came in with a really good idea about how to fight Usyk. And almost no one has good ideas about how to fight Alexander Usyk. So, also this last weekend, we did have the PFL card in Brussels. Let me have a quick look at that. Naoki Inoue robbed Marcelo Alves at PFL Brussels this weekend. I don't remember enough about that fight. I'm not going to completely disagree with you because I can't recall everything about that one off the top of my head. Main event, Patrick Haber. I heard them say this and I practiced it and now it's failing me. Habirora defeated Benson Henderson, former UFC lightweight champion, in 20 seconds. Like, Bendo's over the hill, but Habirora had knocked out another previous UFC champ in short order right before this. UFC fighters, excuse me. Yeah, his last 3 fights have been against UFC vets. He stopped all of them in the first round. He head kicked Danny Roberts, he knocked out Kevin Jousset, and he knocked out Benson Henderson. I mean, yeah, to your point, Tristan. Like, I don't know anyone that was picking Bendo, but Habirora might be a thing. Like, he's a big welterweight, and he's got power. That dude might be a real thing for PFL. So, I mean, yeah, this is a, get the young up and comer a win over a vet fight, but we've seen plenty of those that didn't end in 20 seconds either. So, Taylor Lapilus beat Jake Hadley. Taylor Lapilus is just kind of sucks that they cut him from the UFC, but he never was able to overcome his first impression with them. Jared Gooden got knocked out, which is not surprising. I'm gonna have to watch the Inoue and Alves fight because Tristan's claiming it was a robbery. There was a 30-27 for Alves and 2 29-28s for Inoue. That speaks to either a remarkably boring fight, a ludicrously close fight, or a very weird bit of scoring. So I will check that. What else happened there? There's a head kick knockout. That's always fun. I'm a sucker for a ninja choke. Oh, it was a great fight. Okay. I will go out of my way to watch that one then. Yeah, anytime you have a 30-27 and then 29-28 the other way, again, you've got either a dog shit fight, a absolute like incredibly close great fight. There's almost nothing in between those two options. Like it's either hard to score because nothing happens, or it's hard to score because good grief, everything happened. Was there anything on the prelims I thought was any good? Kamzat Abayev's knockout of Luka Poklet was nice. There was the weirdness around Dongi Abena and Joe Schilling. So Abena gets a quick takedown, and Schilling is not happy to be on the ground because he sucks down there. And then Abena throws a headbutt. It doesn't land on the head, but he like throws a headbutt. And the ref stops the action, yells at Abena because don't freaking headbutt people. It's one of the few rules in this sport that is like unambiguous. And then the ref tries to restart them on the ground with Schilling on his back with full guard. And Schilling's like, no, what are you doing? I don't want to be back down here with a guy who's going to try to headbutt me again. You screwing this up. You should take away the position. And Schilling's like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing this. It's hard for me to blame Schilling too much because like there was Abena throws a headbutt. Like he didn't. It's not one of those things where like I'm trying to slam, you're out of full guard, and maybe our heads kind of bang and I'm being reckless. Like they're down. He's like, got this, and then he goes, a headbutt. Like I can't be too mad at Joe Schilling for them being told, no, go back on bottom with this guy when the position should have been taken away. And it's going like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, don't headbutt guys in MMA. It's against the rules. I think that was the only stuff I really had there. So you know what? Again, I'm happy that the PFL seems to be kind of steadily going. They're struggling to actually like gain momentum, but I want there to be more options in the MMA landscape. So I hope they figure their crap out. But speaking of the MMA landscape at large, a familiar face. Scott Coker announced he is putting together a new MMA promotion / league. He wants to do a year-long tournament. At a specific weight class with other fights thrown in instead of but that to kind of be the focal point of the year is a Grand Prix style thing. He's got about $60 million of investment money thus far. You can find the full list of investors in his press briefing. There's some famous people that you might recognize in there, among them pop culture luminary and skateboarding icon Tony Hawk, who will be mistaken for Tony Hawk on investor calls. If you know Tony Hawk, follow Tony Hawk's social media page. That's his running gag is people say, hey, you look like Tony Hawk. And he goes, yeah, I get that all the time. I don't know how I feel about trying to run tournament MMA in 2026. I mean, I don't think they're planning on having their first event until like either much later in the year or next year, but either way, for the sake of argument, let's just say 2026. The Grand Prix, Strikeforce kind of caught the last tail end of that when they did their heavyweight Grand Prix right before they shuttered their doors. Even then, like Daniel Cormier winning that whole thing, he was an alternate and got subbed in at some point. Like it didn't quite click. Grand Prix in MMA, I know Bellator like Bjorn Rebney had a real hard on for tournaments. Tristan chiming in. We like the tournament show Scott Coker produced where they picked each other's fights. I didn't see that. But that's not the worst. If you're doing like quasi-reality TV show style, like that's not the worst premise. I think if you want to do this, you have to do it the way, I hate to bring this up, you have to do it the way Pride did. Like during this part of the year, we're going to have a Grand Prix for this weight class. And it's going to be featured on, these events. But there's plenty of other fights going on there at the same time. Oh, right, the Bellator tournament that AJ McKee won. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, again, like if you my problem kind of just goes as follows. You're putting the excitement at the whims of fate because logic dictates you take the two fights like the two guys you want to see fight and you put them in opposite brackets so they can meet in the finals. And then that almost never happens. I can't say full on never, but you're taking your life in your hands there. Like, I mean, there was the light heavyweight one in Pride where everyone wanted to see Vanderlei Silva and Chuck Liddell. And then, Chuck wins his first round fight and then loses badly to Rampage. Or you get ones where, like, I mean, it's largely accepted that Vanderlei Silva didn't try real hard to beat Ricardo Arona because he didn't want to fight Shogun, his teammate, in the finals. So Arona wins that, and then, I mean, Shogun was never losing that tournament. Like, his run through that Grand Prix is one of the most impressive things you'll see. One of the most impressive, like, runs in MMA. He was murdering people. You like turns where everyone knows their opponent ahead of time. Yeah, let's not do the one night thing, even for the finale. If there was one thing that I didn't like when Pride did that, it was we're going to have the semifinals as like the first two fights of the night, and then we'll have the finals as the main event. And you could be and we don't know the fighters don't know what the final configuration is going to be because there's fights that have to happen. Not the biggest fan of that. I don't know how much relevance the tournament format has in MMA at this point. Chat me in with it. Wells right now, everyone's squatting on their spots. No one wants to fight, only for the belt. Oh no, why should they not want to fight for the biggest prize? Is kind of my response to that. Of course you want to fight for the belt. Tournament solves the squatting problem. Only partially. I mean, because how many times do you wind up with like not the actual fighters anyway because someone gets injured? Do you postpone the whole thing? No, you sub in an alternate and no one's happy with it. I mean, the reality is like the matchmaker model is better for sustained MMA success than a tournament format. That's just proven true over and over and over and over and over again. It's a nice alternative. Yeah, is it though? Look, Bellator tried to build around this and it got them nowhere. PFL tried to build around this and it got them nowhere. Like, I would like a once a year, one weight class Grand Prix kind of thing. But pick one weight class, do it for, and say like during this 8-month stretch. You can maybe even do it over the whole year. Make it a 12 month thing, whatever. we're doing this weight class. Here's the 8 guys that are going to be in it. It goes from this date to this date. First round matches are January, finals are in December. I'm okay with that as like spice, but trying to make that like your central identity as a fight promotion in MMA doesn't seem like that's a winning formula to me. It's been tried over and over and over again, and it's never worked. It's never led to long-term sustained success. And yeah, exactly. You need the real division belts. And again, I think there is room for it as spice, as a flavor additive to the main dish. Can use them to create contenders. You can use the matchmakers to create. It's not like the UFC just said Michael Morales is the next guy or Carlos Praches is the guy. They won fights violently. It's not that the matchmaker model is perfect. It's not. It's got problems, some of which we're running up against in the UFC right now. But I just don't know how jazzed the audience. UFC did it when they needed. They did it the one season of The Ultimate Fighter, and nobody watched. Like that's kind of the point. Like it's not that it has no utility, it's that it has no reach. It has no market penetration. Like I'm fine with. I mean, I watched that season of Tough because it featured the best crop of fighters they'd had maybe ever. I mean, certainly since like season 5. That was full of guys who were very, very, very good. It was hands down the best fights that the Ultimate Fighter as a show produced, top to bottom, consistently ever in its entire run. And but like no one cared. Like the entire Tough format was always tournament based, and look what happened to that. It all fell off a cliff. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but again, like I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. I'm happy Coker's back. I don't mind him as a promoter. I want there to be options in the MMA space. Tournaments are better for team sports, basketball. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's more players, there's more variability because like one guy going down on a basketball team, depending on who the guy is, it can be, not great, but you've got a full team. If somebody gets cut in sparring and suddenly your tournament bracket's all out of whack, like what do you do? It can be interesting at times. I don't disagree with that. Like it's a nice additive. I would like to see it make kind of a comeback in some senses. I mean, the last time the UFC tried anything like this was at heavyweight when they did Brock versus Randy on one side of the bracket and Frank Mir and Big Nog on the other side. And that was, that came about largely because of contract disputes between the UFC and Randy Couture. Stop me if you've heard that before. The UFC having contract issues with their heavyweight champion. No, really? But yeah, like that's the last time they did something like that. Because I think that was after they introduced flyweight. I have to double check that. I mean, they did it like to crown the first flyweight champion. They brought in 4 guys. They said, "Here's Joseph Benavidez. Here's oh, why am I blanking on that guy's name? Because I remember like Demetrius Johnson, Ian McCall, Joseph Benavidez, but there was a Japanese guy who they brought in. I am blanking on his name. And now I'm going to have to look it up, and I'm going to feel like a boob as soon as I see it. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I am losing it. Yasuhiro Ushitani. Yeah, they brought him over, and they had those 4 fight. But then, bear in mind, Johnson and Macau fought to a draw in the opening round, so they had to rematch, and Benavidez had to screw around. Like, there's just complications. When Championship created a tournament for DJ when they signed him, sort of. I mean, but again, what came of that? One's barely a thing anymore, and they've like cut everyone that fights MMA for them because they're kind of just retreating to kickboxing at this point and have lost like $500 million. It's not that no one's trying to do it. There's a romantic attachment to it that I kind of understand on an intellectual level, but on a practical level, this just feels like a relic that, a segment of the fan base is like rose-colored glasses for, but anytime it actually comes forward into the present day, nobody cares enough to support it. And that's kind of a shame because I agree, like there's a place for this for tournaments, but Coker's you're gonna need something other than we're gonna be the tournament league. That's been tried and it's never worked. That has never been a sustainable model for MMA. I mean, you kind of got away with it in the early UFC just because nobody cared about anything that was happening. Even then, like UFC 2 has a main event that is 2 guys who didn't really fight before because the actual main eventers fell out. Like that happened several times over the first few UFC events was guys falling out because boy, I'm hurt. Because I've already fought twice in one night. That will mess you up. So we'll see. Like I said, I wish Coker well. I don't dislike him as a promoter. I want there to be alternatives in the MMA space, even if they never challenge the UFC in terms of like actual market capture. I want alternatives. What's the over under on Scott selling out in 4 years? Okay, so hang on. The correct thing to say there is like, does Scott Coker sell that promotion? If you set the over under at what, like 3.5, and then does Scott sell? Do you go Scott sells before 3.5 years or after 3.5 years? And that's an interesting question. My hunch at the moment is he might not sell at all, and he'll just ride that until it falls. But I could be wrong about that. Well, Tristan's taking the over, so yeah, Coker is, dude. He's been promoting like regional MMA in Southern California since Strikeforce collapsed, basically. So it's not like he's been doing nothing. We will keep an eye on that, but I mean, when Coker said that like there's a lot of malaise in MMA, Tristan wants to set at 6.5. Okay, that might be a better line. But I mean, part of the reason Coker said he's coming back is like, all the people he knows who used to watch MMA don't anymore. That's true. The MMA fandom burns out every 5 years, give or take. If you've stuck around for 2 cycles of that, you're a dinosaur. If you've been around for 3 of it or so, like me, you're a fossil. I mean, and there's plenty of people who've been around longer than I have. They're pre-Cambrian life forms. Like that's just the way the sport goes. Like you will find more lapsed fans and burned out fans than you will like contemporary fans by a non-trivial margin. I mean, I think the MMA on Point guys pointed this out. They were talking about like overhyped and underwhelming title runs. Like there was a non-trivial percentage of the fan base that saw Sean O'Malley's UFC debut and were gone by the time he won the belt. I mean, guys, we're like this close to the next big turnover point because we are at the 5-year mark from all the COVID fans coming in. Like, we're going to get a serious drop off in the next 12 months from now. Like, that's just the cycle. So, all right. And last thing I have here, then I will check the social medias and whatnot. The UFC announced some roster cuts after their last event. They cut 2 winners. 2 losers too. They cut Daniel Barres, who lost to Luis Garule. That was probably fair given the age of Barres. They cut Tuco Tokos after his loss to Ivan Arslan, which is entirely fair. And then they cut Ivan Arslan, which is also fair. He went 1-3 over 4 fights. The surprising one was the following. They decided to part ways with Ketlin Vieira, who beat Jacqueline Cavalcante on that card. I don't know what the deal is with that. There's been some speculation that this is an indicator that they are probably looking at, if not outright closing, drastically scaling back women's bantamweight fights once we get done with Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes. I mean, you just cut a woman who's been a top 10 to who's been like top 10 to top 5 in that weight class for like years. I mean, Vieira's been, she's been with the UFC for a long time. She's never quite broken through to fight for the belt. She stumbled in some very key spots. But you deciding you no longer want her services in conjunction with the fact that you've just booked a lot less female fights overall this year. And the math on that is just the math. Like, you can look it up. Here's how many women's fights the UFC has booked thus far in 2026 versus 2025 versus 2024. They're booking less of them. And if you're cutting, legitimate top 5 talent, look, women's bantamweight is kind of a dumpster fire. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But I don't know what cutting fighters near the top of it is going to do all that much for you. So, I don't know, man. Yeah, Sal chiming in. You're watching Vale Tudo before the UFC even happened. Yeah, like, dude, some of us have stuck around for the long haul. I don't pretend to have been here the longest. Plenty of people are more tenured than I am. But I have been around for a bit, and if you've been around for that as long as, Sal here has, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I would bet money that of the group that you started watching fights with, you might be the last one standing. I am, for the most part. That's just how it is. The sport just burns out the fans. I don't know if that's a feature or a bug at this point, but it is what it is. So the UFC, again, they cut some fighters. The Vieira one is the most interesting / damning one because that demonstrates a severe lack of faith in the future of women's bantamweight at a minimum, if not women's MMA writ large. Which, I've been whining about it for a while. Like, women's MMA has not progressed the way that you would really think it should have over the last 5, 6 years, longer maybe. I mean, we did this last week. Like, who could Ronda beat right now in the women's bantamweight division? The answer is most of them. And frankly, most of the ranked fighters. Like, Ronda hasn't fought in 10 years. Like, the last one's still breathing. Fair. So, I don't know. We'll keep an eye on this, and we'll see if the UFC does anything else crazy to indicate some of their intentions for the women's divisions going forward. But at the moment, it does not look promising for them. Let me just say that. Might change. Very well might change. And, fortunes in combat sports change very, very quickly. So if the right combination of things happens, we could be having a whole different conversation. But at a minimum, I would say they're renovating. But cutting a top fighter like that off a win is not a good indicator. All right. Let's check the old social medias and see if anything crazy is broken. If not, we will do plugs and get out of here. Okay. I'm not seeing anything MMA related. There's some craziness. No, I don't think there's anything new here. All right. No, I'm not seeing that. So if you got questions, this is your last chance. Otherwise, I'm going into plugs. Tristan chiming in. Caitlin never gets any finishes. That's true. And entertainment in women's MMA is hard to come by these days. That is true. I mentioned this in my preview, but Zhang Jingnan, excuse me, and Angela Hill. I have a hard time seeing that one be boring. Those two are going to kick the crap out of each other. So yeah, pay attention to that one because Zhang was a real bright spot in one. All right. But I see nothing new there, so let's. My camera decides to have a conniption. Let's do plugs and get out of here. See if I can get this to focus properly. Come on, you can do it. No, you can do it. There we go. Monday, which is technically today, I will be on Damn You Hollywood with Mark Radulich and Alexis Hana. We will be reviewing The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is my happy face. For the record, I have seen not a single episode of any of the Star Wars television shows that make up this monstrosity. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I maintained not watching it once they announced the movie because I know Mark has seen them all. I know Alexis has seen them all. I want to speak for the trees here. I'm going to speak for the normies who didn't watch any of this and what's their reaction to a movie based on a TV show if you didn't watch the TV show. So tune in for that. That will be at 9 p.m. Eastern over on the W2M network for Damn You Hollywood. It's my weekly movie review podcast. And then I have something else this week, right? Yeah, Thursday, the 30th, I will be doing a triple feature with Mark. We will be looking at 3 Harvey Keitel movies. We will be talking about The Duelists, Copland, and Bad Lieutenant. Really, Mark just wanted an excuse to talk about Bad Lieutenant. So he came up with a random collection, with a random idea, said, how about Harvey Keitel movies? And I said, sure, let's find ones we haven't already talked about. And we came up with Copland and The Duelists. So that will be a lot of Mark wanting to talk about Bad Lieutenant, and I will humor him, and then a little bit on the other 2 movies, I imagine. So tune in for that on Thursday, again, 9 p.m. Eastern. Should be a good time. And yeah, Friday, WWE SmackDown. This is the go-home show for Clash in Italy. I covered Saturday night's main event last Saturday because there was no UFC event, and I like money. And I get paid by the event. So I covered that. You can find those in the Wrestling Zone of 411mania.com. Again, SmackDown on Friday, UFC Saturday, early Saturday morning from Macau, and then we will be back here next week, hopefully more on time. We will review the Macau card and we will preview more warehouse fights. The UFC is back in their personal facility in the deserts of Las Vegas with this is okay. This is not a great card. The main event is Bilal Muhammad and Gabriel Bonfim. Who could care? Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shabazian. Allen coming off of that big win over De Ritter, fighting unranked Edmund Shabazian. Bryce Mitchell and Victor Henry. I don't know what to think about Bryce Mitchell at this point. Emmanuel Rodriguez and Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell tends to lose funny, at least. Bruno Silva and Edgar Scheidrez. Okay, that's okay. Jordan Levitt and Joe Anderson Brito. I have a soft spot for Jordan Levitt. He's weird. Ferris Yam and Tom Nolan's not bad. I like the Smile Killer. Ketlin Stozen or Ani Carnelosa. Who cares? Priscilla Cachoeira shouldn't be in the UFC. Marcus McGee. Who was his original opponent? He was supposed to fight Jakob Viklatz, and now instead he's fighting John Giannis. McGee and Viklatz would have been good. That would have been real good. Then Junior Tafa is fighting Ivo Baraneski. Who could possibly care? So there's for warehouse fights, that's an okay card with a really not good main event. Bryce Mitchell is the court jester. Bryce Mitchell is too disturbed to be a jester. Iwo is an intriguing prospect. I mean, you need some hope at light heavyweight, I suppose, and he might categorize for that. Allen might lose now that Chimaev lost. just for the continuity. Could be. So the fact that the main event is Bilal Muhammad and Gabriel Bonfim is like the albatross around that card. Because outside of that, you can cobble together, 4-ish fights on there that are moderately interesting, and 1 or 2 that you might have personal attachment to for whatever random reason. So take that for what it's worth. We'll have a full preview next week. All right. That is it for me. It is after 3 in the morning where I am. I am very tired. But until next week, thank you all again. Thank you for giving the stream a thumbs up. Thank you for chatting. Share this around if you know anyone you think might enjoy it. Live or after the fact, I don't care very much. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. So thank you again. Much love. See you next week. Until then, as always, be well, be safe, and behave. See you next time.